so excited! Happy publication day! Happy publication day! That's right, I'm here to talk to you about Force of Nature by Jane Harper, and I'm a wee teensy bit enthusiastic about it. Hi guys, it's Leanne, and as you have guessed from the beginning of this video, I am a happy girl today because today I finally get to talk to you about this book. This here is Force of Nature, and it is the sequel to The Dry by Jane Harper, which I read, completely consumed, loved, and was immediately sad was over. I needed the sequel straight away, and finally, here it is. In this video, I will be reviewing this beauty, but I will also be telling you a little bit of information about the world of Aaron Falk and why you should join me there. Let me start off by saying that if you are looking for a crime series with something different in it, this is the series that you need to be picking up right now, because no tropes were spared in the making of this series, y'all. Jane Harper just tied them all up in a big old bin bag and dropped them off the edge of a cliff. No requirement for the old here, it's all new material. You see, I picked up The Dry with the wholehearted hope that it would break my run of frankly uninspiring and repetitive detective stories. I love a good detective story in the same way that I love a good accidental passerby who has been roped in my thriller fiction. But I was really finding nothing to sink my teeth into. Everything seemed to be something that had been done before, done better, and was now done to death. Pun totally intended. Enter Aaron Falk into my life. You see, Aaron Falk is not an anti-hero. He isn't sexily broken. He is not balding or badly dressed or extremely jaded with a drinking problem. Aaron Falk is a fairly average guy who just happened to join the police as his profession and has ended up in all places in the financial fraud department. And he's quite happy there, thank you all very much, because actually they do really good work. And I really appreciated that. That was a super refreshing take on a detective. Jane Harper is not afraid to let Falk be broken. He comes from an extremely broken home and she allows him to be emotional about that, and that is something that I crave in my crime right now. I crave men who are not emotionally stunted and who are not forced time and time again to be the strong man. Falk is screwed up, but he's screwed up in a way that I can recognise and relate to. So as a quick reminder of what happened in The Dry, with no spoilers, we follow Falk when he goes home to Kiawara, which is an extremely small and really rural outback town in Australia, where he grew up and bad things happened, as they tend to do when we're growing up in small towns with not very many people around us to help us to think diversely. And he's drawn into a murder which he wants nothing to do with, but because it involves an old school friend of his and his now grieving parents, he doesn't really have a choice. And I really loved that device for getting a detective involved in a murder when murders are really not his bag. In Force of Nature, we pick up Falk's story as he has returned to the big city with the serious consequences of what happened in The Dry, which he is just trying to cope with badly. And Falk's nice day is summarily interrupted by a crackly phone call with a very disturbing message. Right before his partner, who we're just meeting for the first time, Carmen, calls him to say that the firm, the accountancy firm who they had been investigating in a long and drawn out undercover operation, had a little problem, shall we say. This accountancy firm, Bailey Tennants, had decided that they were going to do some team building exercises, but instead of just doing a traditional old trust fall and some dodgy cakes and going back to the office, they decided that they were going to book a 3-day weekend outback hike trek thing where they had to somehow, with a map and a compass, get from A to B to C and then get home, and they were supposed to work as teams and blah 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 blah. None of this sounds like a good idea to me. None of it. And funnily enough, it's not a good idea, because as it says on the front of the book here, five women specifically, because there were a group of men and a group of women, and wow, that was sexist and a crap way to split it up, but also very believable. 5 women went into the bush and 4 women came out. And therein lies the problem, because the one woman who didn't come out was the one contact that Falk and Carmen had in Bailey Tennants, and they really, really need to find her, and preferably in one piece. That's all I'm going to say about the plot, because I do not want to spoil any of it. So on to what I thought about it. I loved it, and I want to wear it as a hat so everyone can see how much I loved it. Harper, I want to smoosh her. She has this really particular gift for split timelines. In The Dry, we followed Aaron Falk, who was investigating what had gone on with his childhood friend. But simultaneously, in alternative chapters, we saw bits and pieces from the point of view of his school friend and the other people who were involved in the potential murder. And as Falk is finding this out, we would then switch to a chapter where we would see it happen, and it was just masterful, and she has done it again in this one. So in this one, we have a chapter with Falk and Carmen who are trying desperately to figure out what the hell has happened to Alice, and then we are seeing in a split timeline from the beginning of the trek into the outback through each day from the women's point of view. And she doesn't just stay with Alice, she flits back and forth between all 5 of the women who went out on that trek. And the way that she has pulled all these strings together is freaking masterful, and it kept the tension on a knife edge throughout the entire novel, exactly the same as The Dry, which I was hoping was not a fluke, because there's always that scary moment when you read a really, really phenomenal book that's the first in a series where you worry that that wonderful tension, that wonderful build up, the timing and suspense is not going to translate to the next book, but oh my lord, it does. The other more obvious thing about these books is the fact that they are set in Australia and populated by Australian characters. I love Australian fiction. I cannot tell you, I am so glad that you guys have now picked up on this, because I'm getting lots of recommendations for channels and lots of recommendations for Australian literature, and please keep them coming, because they are phenomenal recommendations. I have found some gems. This is so atmospheric. In The Dry, and I mentioned this in my best books of 2017, which I'll link above in case you haven't seen it, or in case you want to remind yourself of what I thought about The Dry, because I reviewed it there. In The Dry, I felt like I could taste the dust. It is in a town where there is a drought, and I could taste the dust. I could feel the heat beating down. I could feel the stillness in the air. I could feel the tension of all of the nature around just waiting to bubble over when there was water. And this one, she has just carried on and taken us to another place which has the complete opposite. It's lush, it's sharp, it's vicious, it's full of thorns and tangly bits, and you get the feeling in this one that the bush just wants to like slowly close in around you and swallow you and never to be seen again. As for the plot, this one, so you all know that when I read crime or thriller or mystery, I do not want to know. I do not want to guess it. I don't want to think 30 or 40 pages before the end, oh, I know who it is, let's just get to the bit where everybody else finds out who it is. I want to be told a story. I want to be swept up in the narrative. I do not want to know what is going on before anybody else in the book does. This one, oh, she evil, crafty lady. I thought a bunch of times that I knew what was going on in this one. And I was taking to Goodreads every time and being like, I think I've guessed something, or oh, this person's really annoying, but I think she does this. And without spoiling it, I was going on little rampages every day, every time I updated this book, like. But every single time I thought I knew what happened, it was a lie. It was a big stinky lie. The one thing that I will say, the only one thing, is that we are introduced to Falk's partner Carmen in this one, and Carmen is engaged. She's quite happily engaged, and we don't find out a whole lot about Carmen throughout the novel, although I imagine that we will do in the coming books. There are a couple of little points in this book where Falk is kind of attracted to Carmen and Carmen is kind of attracted to Falk, and they have a little thing at one point, just a little tiny thing at one point, and it's explained really well and doesn't detract at all from the characters and doesn't make me think, oh, cheating, just not into that. But I think that what Jane Harper was trying to do was emphasise how bad Falk was with interpersonal skills, particularly when interpreting how he feels about the opposite sex, because I think a lot of the time he doesn't know how he feels about himself. And I think that from Carmen's point of view, what Jane Harper was trying to do was exhibit a type of relief because of a thing that happens, and that was okay, but I didn't need it. I need Jane, just in case you're listening, as I need more of Carmen as a person and less of her love life. I don't care about her love life, and if Falk's gonna have a partner at some point, I would like it to be a partner that didn't come to him by questionable motives or means. I can't wait for book 3. So tell me in the comments, have you read The Dry? Are you going to be picking up Force of Nature? Do we need to have a conversation about why you're not? And again, you know, any more Australian recommendations that you have, the comments, just put them all down there. Add them all to my list. Read them all. Read all the Australian literature. So until next time, guys, I will see you later.